Now today I'm going to talk to you about why you want to think about considering switching over from using, just smoking all the time to maybe you want to go into looking at doing some versions of edibles. Now, there's a couple of different options you can go with. Today we're going to talk about tincture. So tincture is where you take something, a high proof alcohol, even an oil as such, and you're going to extract the essence, lavender, it can be cloves, it could be any essential oil that you've seen, and cook it to a certain temperature. And then once you cook it to a certain temperature, the byproduct of that liquid, once it's put into usually a 1 ounce bottle or a 2 ounce bottle, is essentially a tincture. Now, when you use it in the sense with cannabis and you do a cannabis tincture, you can take like your joint. This one here, right here is a 1.5 gram joint. Let's see here, it has 225 milligrams inside the one joint. Now you can sit down and smoke all day, or maybe, depending on who you are, this might last you the whole day, it might last you 2 days. The amount that you inhale through smoking is not as accurate as you can do with a tincture. But let's just say you sit down and you smoke and you do a couple hits, and it lasts you 10-15 minutes, you can go about your day. That might be fine. But there's a lot of scenarios where you're not going to be able just to go outside and go smoke. And even still, you got to make sure that, you don't smell like smoke, depending on where you are. There's people that are very sensitive to smoke, and, you got that, just like anyone who doesn't want to smell cigarettes, that kind of feeling, and you're just trying to heal yourself. So this is where a tincture is going to come in, right? Now, there's probably a few different methods of how you can go about a tincture. Back in the day, there used to be something called the Green Dragon. The Green Dragon method is when you would do a high proof alcohol. We used to use Everclear. If you use Everclear, the benefit of Everclear is that you can make your tincture fairly quickly. I mean, you can make a tincture probably within 30 minutes, right? What you end up doing is cooking your high proof alcohol right after you decarbed it. And the decarb method, of your choice, if you don't have any tools to make a decarb method, you would just decarb that in the oven. All right, so once you have your decarbed bud, you would take your decarbed cannabis and you would add that into your alcohol, and then you would cook that to about 170 degrees. Once it's cooked to 170 degrees, what happens is the cannabinoids start to fall off your flower, and then you're going to be able to utilize that liquid and take that liquid, and then now you have your tincture. Now, it does burn off a good portion of the alcohol, but it's Everclear here, so that definitely has a slight burn to it. Some people like it, some people don't. It's a way faster method than the second method. Now, the second method, what you can do is you can cook MCT oil. Now, if you switch over to MCT oil, you can use a machine for this, or you even can use a double boiler. And if you use a machine, the machine that we used is from a company called Ardent. And you literally decarb your bud, you put in you put in your MCT oil, and they have it cook, I think it's up to 160 degrees, but essentially they cook it for about 3 hours, and that doesn't leave the residue of the burn sensation because you're using MCT oil. Because you're using MCT oil, which is essentially coconut oil, small amounts. It's great. I wouldn't suggest you drink the whole thing, nor would I suggest you drink that whole thing if it was a Green Dragon. But that way, instead of smoking 220 milligrams in a day or two, you can take 220 milligrams in a 1 ounce bottle or 2 ounce bottle, and you can precisely dose how much you're going to get that day. Now, since the tincture goes through your body, at this very moment I cannot remember the process of which portion it goes through, but it does take a little bit longer to kick in. Now you're able to plan when this can happen, right? Not so much like an edible. I mean, it is an edible, but sometimes that you've heard in cases where an edible takes an hour to an hour and a half. So that doesn't mean take this edible and you have to wonder. You can say, okay, I know that within this time frame, I'm gonna feel this way and I can get this relief. That's something that you can work with, considering where you have to go and what you need to do later on. If you're gonna be in a movie theater, you're gonna go eat, I could take my tincture right now while I'm eating. By the time this movie kicks in, I'm gonna be there because I can't go jump out to go smoke. These are examples for you. Another example is you just don't like to smoke. Not everyone wants to sit down for however long it takes you to smoke. to reach your desired effect. Your tincture allows for better, precise dosage, and since it's MCT oil, or even if you did the Green Dragon method, it's really easy to combine to anything to infuse it quicker. Not everyone has the opportunity to go out, but let's just say you went out to your favorite restaurant. You know, you can't just go out. I mean, some of us have done it, you know, but we might just go out real quick, go smoke, come back, ready to go eat. If you take your tincture prior, then you don't have to leave anywhere. Don't have to interrupt the flow of the restaurant. Don't have to interrupt the flow of sitting down and enjoying your food with somebody. You could take your tincture. By the time you are ready, you could be ready to eat, or you could just infuse your meal right then and there and go about your day. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. I mean, you have options. You can still smoke. You'll always be able to smoke. There's a lot of products out there now where you can just have things shipped to you, high quality products. You could do edibles. These right here are strawberry tarts. These are really good. They are a 1:1:1 ratio. You know, everyone has their desired thing, but in terms, you can put this right in your pocket. And a way to figure out the dosing for when you use a tincture, because this is super important. You want to buy a 1 ounce tincture, and then you have 500 milligrams, 1,000 milligrams, 1,500 milligrams, 5,000 milligrams, doesn't matter. Inside a 1 ounce bottle, you're gonna get 30 milliliters, right? 1 milliliter, to the best of most people's knowledge, is you squeeze it as hard as you can and you grab 1 drop. 1 drop is 1 milliliter. So if you have, in this case, if I was able to take this joint, right, and I broke it all up and I decarbed it, essentially, to the best of the ability of everything staying exactly the same, meaning you don't lose any of the flower through the heat process, which is unlikely. Of course, there's going to be some percentages, but regardless, let's just say that you got the full 220 milligrams from this joint, you decarbed it, and now you're going to put it into your MCT oil, or you're just going to go buy this somewhere at a store, right? So you have 220 here. You're going to do 220 divided by 30. And based off what Alexa just told me, that equals about 7.3 milliliters per dropper, right? So you can say, I'm the type of person that only needs 2 drops. That's essentially, I need 14 grams. I said milliliters, I meant to say grams, right? So 220 from the joint or wherever you get it, or if they said 500, you would do 500 divided by 30, or if it said 1,000, you do 1,000 by 30. Just depends on how big the bottle is, but essentially if you have a 1 ounce bottle, you're gonna have 30 drops. You're gonna do 220 divided by 30 drops, and that essentially is gonna equal 7.3 grams. So if you take 1 drop, that might be the doses for you. If you take 2 drops, it might be 14. But every time you do it, now you know when you want to be and what situation you want to be in, depending on how many drops you take. And now you can say, okay, cool, I'm gonna go here, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna go here, I'm gonna do this. Versus smoking, your high gets blown because someone does something ridiculous, and then now there's not much you can do. Or you can just take a drop. And now you know how you can dose accurately with your tincture. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you've learned something today, because at the end of the day, we should know when we have access to these things and how to use them. And the ability to do so is getting closer and closer to the point where you could just order something online, but you're just a little confused on what you want to get, but you know that where you are right now, you could be better. Things are going to be able to come to your door very shortly, very soon. And thanks for your time.